Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tzadi Daled, Daf 94 of Masechta Pesachim. Now, Daf 94, for like a lot of it, talks about like astrological kind of things. Some things I can explain, some things I can't, some things I can like just read and translate. But yeah, there might be some interesting things there, and some like abstract kind of astrological things. And then at the end we get into the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who says that if you're outside of the Azara, then you're already considered Derech Rechoka, which is an interesting opinion, because that basically means that everybody's considered Derech Rechoka, essentially. I don't know who's in the Azara. Nobody lives in the Azara. Everyone's outside the Azara. Anyways, pretty interesting. So, says the Gemara, 2, 4, 5 lines into the page, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Haya Omer Chutz L'Modiim. If a person was standing outside of Modi'in, maybe he was like in Moshav Mevo Modi'in, maybe. I think that's past Modi'in, right? So, let's say he's hanging out in Moshav Mevo Modi'in, and so he's considered Derech Rechoka. But he's got a very fast horse or very fast mule that can zip him over to Yerushalayim. Is it possible that then he'll be considered close enough, and he'll be chayiv if he doesn't get on his speedy mule or horse and get to Jerusalem? It says, look, you're only chayiv kares if you were not baderech rechoka, but here you were baderech rechoka. It doesn't have to do with how fast you can get to Jerusalem. It depends on where you were, and therefore, even though yes, there was a possibility to speed things up and get to Jerusalem, but you don't need to do that because, after all, you were further than Modi'in. But now, the reverse applies as well, which is haya omi lifnim min Modi'in. If he was within the range of Modi'in, i.e. he was not considered Derech Rechoka. However, there's traffic. So he's not Derech Rechoka, he's close enough, but there's traffic, he can't get there. Now, what he can do is he could just ditch his family and then just do it himself, and then he will be able to get there. So does he have to do that? He's going to Jerusalem with his whole family. He's got everybody there. Things are moving slowly. He could just kind of leave everybody and make it to Jerusalem. Does he have to do that, or can he say look, it's not convenient for me to get to Jerusalem? It's possible that he won't be chayiv. It says, look, if a person is not far away, he's not b'derech rechoka, so then he has to come to Jerusalem and do Korban Pesach, and he wasn't b'derech rechoka, so yeah, he has to bounce, he has to leave everybody on the road, everybody screaming and crying, scrambling to figure out what they're going to do for Pesach on the highway, and he goes to Jerusalem and brings his Korban Pesach. Maybe he can make a stipulation with his kids, like we learned the other day. Maybe he can motivate them by saying whoever gets there first will be able to take part in the Korban Pesach with them. Maybe that'll get people to hurry up. But interesting. Okay. So this is when we start getting into stuff. Astrological stuff. So says Rava that the world is 6,000 parsos, and importantly Rashi explains that what this means is the distance that the sun travels in space from the east to the west. The reason why this is important is because some of the further Gemaras are going to sort of relate specifically to how far the sun needs to travel. So Rav is saying basically every day the sun travels 6,000 parsos, which is 24,000 mil. All right, something like 12,000 miles, I guess. All right. V'sumcha de rakia alpha parse, and the thickness of the rakia, of the firmament, is 1,000 parsos, i.e. 1/6 of how far the sun travels. Now, one of these claims he actually has a tradition for. The other claim he learned out himself, right? So he has the tradition that during the day the sun travels 6,000 parsos, and now he could figure out on his own that the thickness of the firmament is 1,000 parsos. How does he figure that out? Based on what Rabbi Bar Chana said yesterday in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, how far does a regular person walk in a day? Yud parsos, 10 parsos, fine, which is 40 mil. And now from Alos HaShachar until Nates is 5 mil. And from Shkia until Tzeis is another 5 mil. So basically, you can walk a total of 40 mil from Alos HaShachar until Tzeis HaKochavim. Now, the first 5 mil is going to be from Alos HaShachar till Henetz HaChama. The last 5 mil is going to be from Shkia HaChama till Tzeis HaKochavim. And then there's 30 mil from Henetz HaChama until Shkia. And that is what we're talking about in terms of the 6,000 parsos that the sun travels during the day is between Henetz HaChama and Shkia HaChama. And therefore, if we're saying that a person can walk 30 mil during that period, and in the period preceding it, while the sun is rising and crossing the firmament, he can walk 5 mil. So, basically the distance a person can travel during that time between Alos and Henetz HaChama is 1/6 of the distance that he can travel from Henetz HaChama until Shkia. So therefore, if during the time that he could travel the 30 mil during the day, the sun travels 6,000 parsos, well then, while he's walking the 5 mil from Henetz HaChama, from Alos HaShachar till Henetz HaChama, the sun would also travel 1/6 of what it travels during the day, i.e. 1,000 parsos. So, okay, fine. So nimtza ovyo sharakia echad mishisha bayom. So we see that according to Rava's calculations, that the thickness of the firmament is 1/6 of the day, right? Okay, Seder. So basically, if you can walk 30 mil during the day, and you can walk 1/6 of that while the sun is crossing the firmament, so the thickness is 1/6, and therefore the sun travels 1,000 parsos during that time, since it travels 6,000 parsos during the day. What do you guys think about that? Meisvei, we have a kasha, however. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, the big leagues, Rabbi Yehuda the Tana, he says, Ovyo sharakia echad me'asar bayom. Okay, he says that the thickness of the firmament is 1/10, not 1/6. Okay. How far does a person walk during the day? 10 parsos, 10 parsos, fine. So with that, he seems to be in line. But he says, now from Alos HaShachar until Henetz HaChama is taka 4 mil, as opposed to the 5 mil that we had said earlier. From Shkia until Tzeis is also 4 mil, not 5 mil. And now he says that the thickness of the entire firmament is 1/10 of the day. So now also his calculation is different, meaning whereas Rava calculated 1/6 because he was viewing the 5 mil as separate from the 30 mil, so therefore it's 1/6. Rabbi Yehuda is calculating the 4 mil from Alos HaShachar until Tzeis, until Henetz HaChama as being part of the total, right? So meaning 4 compared to 40 is 1/10. But anyways, the question really is going to come from not necessarily the 10th versus the 6th, but really the fact that Rava, and we're going to see also Ula, maybe even Rabbi Yochanan, we're going to ask, right? Basically everything up until now has been assuming that from Alos HaShachar until Henetz HaChama and from Shkia HaChama until Tzeis HaKochavim was 5 mil, yet Rabbi Yehuda seems to be saying that it's 4 mil, and that's a big deal because Rabbi Yehuda is a Tana in a Brisa. And these Amora'im are Amora'im. So Tiyufta de Rava Tiyufta. So it's a kasha on Rava, who says that it's 5 mil from Alos HaShachar till Netzach Hama. Rabbi Yehuda is saying it's 4 mil. Tiyufta de Ula Tiyufta. So it's a kasha taka on Ula, who says the same thing. He also prescribes to the statement of Rabbi Bar Bachana named Rabbi Yochanan that, right, Ula says that during the day it's 30 mil, and therefore in the afternoon it's 15 mil, which is Modi'in, and that's the Shas Shchita. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, however, during the day it's not 30 mil, it's 32 mil, because it's 4 from Alos HaShachar till Netzach Hama, and 4 from Shkias HaChama till Tzeitzah Kochavim, 40 minus 8, right, because 4 plus 4 is 8, 40 minus 8 is 32, so then that's already going to be a kasha on Ula. Let's say maybe Takat's also kasha on Rabbi Yochanan. After all, he's the one who made the statement that it's Rabbi Bar Bachana said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that from Alos HaShachar till the Netzach Hama is 5 mil, from Shkias HaChama till Tzeitzah Kochavim is 5 mil, the rest of the day is 30 mil. So Amalach, so Rabbi Yochanan will respond to you, Ana b'imamu da'amri. Rabbi Yochanan says, wait, hold your horses. All I said was the first part of the statement. All I said, which is in agreement with Rabbi Yehuda, is the same thing that Rabbi Yehuda said, which is that during the entire day, a person can walk 10 parsos, which is 40 mil. That's all I said. I didn't say this breakdown of 5 mil and 5 mil. No way, no how. Rabbananu dekato. It's the rabbis who made a mistake. Because they were seeing people walking for 5 mil before Netzach Hama and for 5 mil after Shkias HaChama, and assuming that must mean that between Alos HaShachar and Netzach Hama and from Shkias HaChama until Tzeitzah Kochavim is 5 mil, but that's not really the case. That's not really the case, because they were actually leaving earlier than Alos HaShachar and coming back later than Tzeitzah Kochavim. So says Rabbi Yochanan, really I 100% agree with Rabbi Yehuda that from Alos HaShachar till Netzach Hama is 4 mil, and from Shkias HaChama till Tzeitzah Kochavim is 4 mil. And these fellows who were walking 5 mil, it's because they were leaving early or coming back late. But says Rabbi Yochanan, he's totally in agreement with Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say that maybe it's Takakash and Rabbi Chanina, because Rabbi Chanina said that he said that he saw the distance between Stom and Soar, and it was 5 mil. And the Psukim say that the Malachim were sort of pressuring Lot to get out of his house at Alos HaShachar, and he got the Tzor at Netzach Hama. So it sounds like Rabbi Chanina is saying that from Alos till Netzach Hama is 5 mil. Lo, Vayitzu Shiny, it's different when it comes to Vayitzu. It's different when it comes to the Malachim who were pressuring Lot to get out of there. I think what it means is that that was happening even earlier than Alos HaShachar. Or maybe what it means is that, maybe that's what it means. There's no Rashi on this, so I kind of had to make my own shot. But I think maybe what it means is that they were pressuring him, so therefore he traveled further. Maybe that's taka better. So it's no longer an Adam Benoni. Yeah, he traveled 5 mil during that time because he was being pressured. I think it's probably a better shot. Okay. Now we start getting to like some abstract shtickle in Yonim. Let's see. Tashma, come in here. Mitzrayim hoya arba meos parsa. Okay, so Mitzrayim itself was 400 parsos by 400 parsos. Mitzrayim echad mishishim bekush. Mitzrayim is 1/60th of Kush. Kush echad mishishim ba'olam, and Kush is 1/60th of the world. Now, if we stop right there, the world is like way bigger than 6,000 parsos. Only Egypt alone was 400 by 400. And that's 1/6 of Kush. So now already, I don't know, what's 400 times 600? A bunch. 6 times 4 is 24 plus 4 zeros. That's already 240,000 parsos. And you're going to have to multiply that by another 60 because that's 1/60th of the world. I mean, way bigger than 6,000. But it doesn't stop there. Volam echad mishishim began, vegan echad mishishim began Eden, ve'eden echad mishishim begehenim. So now the world is 1/6 of the garden. The garden is I didn't mean 1/6, I mean 1/60th. The garden is 1/60th of Eden, and then all of that is 1/60th of hell. That sounds like exciting times. The entire world is just like the lid of a pot to hell. Alright? Hell seems like a pretty big place. Tiyuvta. It's a kasha on Rava. So Rava says it's a mere 6,000 parsos, yet we seem to be getting to significantly larger numbers. Tashmakam, and here the Tanat of Eliyahu is taught. So I talk us on the note in the article that it's actually there's a dispute about is Eliyahu a reference to Eliyahu Navi, or maybe there's Taka Tana named Eliyahu. Which do you prefer? Which explanation do you prefer? Rabbi Nosson says Rabbi Nosson called Yishuv Kula Tachas Kochav Echad Yoshev. The entire world can fit under one star. A fellow looks at one star. He walks to the east. He's still in front of that star. He walks to the west. He's still looking at that same star in the same place. So therefore, that must mean that the entire inhabited world is under one star. Now, there's lots of stars out there. Now, the sun travels every day across all the stars. So if the entire world if like one star is the size of the entire world, well then certainly if there's lots of stars, well then they are like way bigger than the entire world. So, and it's going to be bigger than like 6,000 parsos. All right. Tashma. Coming here, Egla Batzafon, the Taurus is Epis in the north, Va'akrav B'darum, and the Scorpio is in the south. Watch out. V'chal Yishuv Kulo Enu Yoshev Ela Ben Egla Le'akrav, and the entire inhabited world is between Taurus and Scorpio. Any of the Babylon Talmud Chevra understand these inyonim? V'chal Yishuv Kulo Enu Ahava Ela Shah Achaz Bayom, and the entire world, inhabited world, is just 1 hour of the day. Because there's only 1 hour of the day when everyone experiences the sun in the same way. Well, in the 5th hour of the day, the sun is in the east still. And in the 7th hour of the day, the sun is already in the west. However, but from halfway through the 6th hour and until halfway through the 7th hour, i.e. on a perfect day from 11:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m., the sun is above everybody. And so we see that like just in 1 hour, the sun is above the entire like world. And then, but there's like, 12 hours in the day, which means that whatever that size is, the sun is moving like 12 times that, which is going to be bigger than 6,000 parsos. Tiyufta also kasha and Rava Tashmakam in here. Dom Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Matshuva Eshiva so Basko Loso Rasha. What did a voice from heaven respond to Nebuchadnezzar at that time? Bishasha Omar Ele al Bamose of Adam Elyon. When he says that I will go up on the heights of the clouds, I will be similar to God. Yotza Basko va'amarlo. A voice came out from heaven and said to him, Rasha ben Benosho Nimrod Rasha, an evildoer, the son of an evildoer, the descendant of Nimrod the evil. That he caused the entire world to rebel against me while he was king. How long does a fellow live for? Shivim Shana, 70 years. If he's lucky, 80 years. Shinemar, the pasuk says, Shivim Shana, that our days are 70 years, and maybe if we're lucky, 80 years. Now from the land until the firmament is 500 years journey. And the thickness of the firmament is another 500 years journey. And also between each firmament is 500 years. And also between each firmament. Oh, and similarly, it's for each of the firmaments. I think there are 7 of them. And you are going to go down all the way to the depths of a pit. So be careful, Mr. Nebuchadnezzar. So we see that the world is really quite vast with all of its 500-year increments. So it's going to be hard to say that the world is a mere 6,000 parsos. Tiyufta, that's also a kasha. Okay. So if until now these Gemaras were sort of abstract, this one I just don't know what the heck it's talking about. If somebody understands this stuff, I guess I can. If you understand these inyanim and you can explain them clearly, maybe I don't know. I'd be curious to hear, but I don't know what in the world these things are, man. So the opinion of the Jewish rabbis is, the Jewish wise people, is Galgal Kavua, that the wheel of the zodiac is fixed, Umazalos Chosrin, and the constellations move around. And the wise people of the other nations, they say, Galgal Choser, that it's the wheel of the zodiac that moves around, Umazalos Kavun, and the constellations are fixed. Rebbe Tshuva L'Divreim, and Rebbe says that to respond to their claim, I can make the argument in favor of the Jewish wise people's claim, that we never see the Taurus in the south and the Scorpio in the north. It's always the Scorpio in the south and the Taurus in the north, and somehow that proves the assertion that the wheel of the zodiac is fixed and the constellations move around. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov asks a question on Rebbe, but maybe I could defend the opinion of the wise people of the other nations who say that it is the wheel of the zodiac that moves and the constellation are fixed, by saying that, well, maybe it's like like a millstone or a pivot of a door that just kind of moves around, like circles around on a pivot and one fixed point. The wise people of Israel say that during the day the sun walks below, travels below the firmament, and at night above the firmament. Whereas the wise people of the other nations, they say that during the day the sun is below the firmament, and at night it's taka below the ground. Omer Rebbe says, Rebbe v'nir and and Itaka makes more sense to argue like them than like us, because during the day the springs are cold and at night they are hot, and therefore it makes sense to say that at night the sun is taka below the ground and heating up the springs. Tanya, we learn in the Brayso, Reb Nosson Omer says, Reb Nosson b'mosa chama maleches begova shorokia, that in the summer the sun is at the height of the firmament. What's the firmament? Therefore the entire world is hot, because I guess you have the sun shining down on it, but the springs are cold. During the winter, the sun is kind of on the sides of the firmament. That's why the whole world is cold, because it's not opposite the sun. And but the springs, which kind of originate on the sides at the edges of earth, so then they are hot because that's where the sun is hanging out. There are 4 paths that the sun traverses. Nisan, Iyar, V'Sivan. So in the first 3 months of the year, Maleches Baharim, the sun traverses in the mountains, Kedei L'Fasher Es HaShlagin, in order to melt the snow. Tammuz Av Ve'elo, in the summer, Maleches B'Yishuv, the sun is in where the people live, Kedei L'Vashel Saperis, in order to ripen the fruits. Tishrei Mecheshvan V'Kislev, in the fall, Maleches B'Mayim, B'Yomim, Kedei L'Yabeshes Naharos. In the fall, the sun is traveling on the waters, in order to dry out the rivers. Okay. Teves Shvat V'Adar, like where we are now, Maleches B'Midbar, Shlo Liyabesh Shesazroim, the sun hangs out in the desert so that it can avoid the plants and won't dry out any of the crops. Sounds good to me. Rebbe Eliezer Omer Meiskopes Chulei. So, back to like Gemara world. So, Rebbe Eliezer had said that it's considered derech chok if you're outside of the threshold of the Azar, which is a very interesting opinion, right? Right. Because I assume then that means basically everybody's derech rechoka who isn't outside the Azara. And even though he can simply go into the Azara, just say, hey bro, go in. But if he doesn't go into the Azara, he's b'derech rechoka. He's can do Pesach Sheni. Very, very interesting stuff. And I guess even by Pesach Sheni, if he's outside of the Azara, so then he won't have to do Pesach Sheni either. Which is also interesting if you think about the machlokas between Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshes from the other day. According to Rav Sheshes, if you're b'derech rechoka, then you're not even allowed to slaughter the korban, to have people slaughter the korban Pesach for you. Well, then basically nobody's ever going to do the korban Pesach. Well, I guess. Well, no. I guess according to Rav Sheshes, theoretically, according to Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rav Sheshes' view, you would have to go into the Azara. So if you go into the Azara, so then, but it sounds like then you would mamish have to like go and do it yourself. Because if you're outside of the Azara, so then you wouldn't send the messenger or anything like they just wouldn't slaughter korban Pesach for you. So according to this view, like you would literally have to go into the Azara because otherwise you'd be b'derech rechoka, and b'derech rechoka you're unable to have people do it for you. Interesting. Akoponim. So v'atanya arul shlomal anush karis to Rabbi Eliezer, but here's the question. We had learned already a while ago, man. We're really far. 94 pages into Masechta Pesachim. Wow. So where was the first time we saw this brisa? On Daf Samach Tes, that's the first place where we saw it? Yeah, I guess that sounds about right. That's already like 3.5 weeks ago. Wow. Time flies when you're learning Daf Yomi. Anyways, so Rabbi Eliezer says that in Arul Shlomal, if you have a fellow who doesn't have a bris milah, and he doesn't get a bris milah, it's Erev Pesach, and he's not getting a bris milah, so he's chayiv kares. Why should that be any different? How come when you have a fellow who's outside of the Azara, we don't say, hey, just go into the Azara, and yet when it comes to an Arul, we have the opposite opinion, which is get a bris milah, if you don't, you're chayiv kares. So Abai derech rechoka l'tarv and derech rechoka l'tameh. Abai says, like we learned yesterday, apples and oranges. Somebody who's tahor has the halachas of derech rechoka, and as long as you're outside the Azara, so you're derech rechoka, and that's that. You don't have to go in. Somebody who is tameh, or in this case is an arul, it doesn't have to do with being far away. It has to do with the fact that, let's say somebody who's tameh is unable to eat the korban that night. That's why he doesn't bring the korban Pesach, because he's unable to eat it. But somebody who doesn't have bris milah, he can get a bris milah and then he can eat it. So therefore we're going to say get a bris milah and then eat the korban Pesach. But derech rechoka is not about being able to eat it, it's about being far away. And if the definition of far away is the iskopus azar, well then zeu, you're far away. You don't need to go in. Rava Amar Tanai. So Rava says, actually, interestingly, it's a machlokas Tanaim about what Rabbi Eliezer actually said. Did Rabbi Eliezer really say that if you're outside of the iskopus azara, then you're considered derech rechoka? It's actually a dispute. The Tanya is we learn in the Brisa, Rabbi Eliezer Omer says Rabbi Eliezer, Nema richuk makom b'Pesach. So by Pesach we talk about being b'derech rechoka. V'nema richuk makom b'Maiser. And we also have the concept of richuk makom by Maiser Sheni, of course, right? We know that if you have a fellow and he's got a field and he's got Maiser Sheni, he doesn't have to schlep all the Maiser Sheni to Jerusalem to eat it there. He could transfer the value onto money and bring the money to Jerusalem. So it says over there that, right, ki yirchak mimcha amakom, that if you're far away from Jerusalem, so you could transfer it to money. So ma lehalon chutz lachilaso afkan chutz lachilaso. So just like by Maiser Sheni, you're outside of Jerusalem, i.e., outside of where you would eat the Maiser Sheni, so you could transfer it to money. So here also by Korban Pesach, when it talks about being far away, it's outside of where you would eat it, i.e., not just outside of the Azara, but outside of all of Jerusalem, right? Meaning you're far away relative to Jerusalem, and that's going to be the traditional thing that we've been discussing, Rabbi Akiva's opinion, which is Modi'in. Whereas Rabbi Yossi, by Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Chutz la'asiyaso, rather it means outside of where you do it, meaning by Maiser Sheni, that would be Jerusalem. But in the case of Korban Pesach, that's the Azara. Where do you do the avoda of the Korban Pesach? In the Azara. And therefore, as long as you're outside of the Azara, you're going to be considered b'derech rechoka. K'man azla ada amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Rav Yosef b'tmei malech acharova omdin ba'azara. That's really interesting. K'man Rav Yosef bar Rabbi Yehuda she'amar mishum Rabbi Eliezer. There's this opinion of Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Yosef that let's say you have in the Azara, everybody in the Azara is Tameh, but everybody outside of the Azara on Har HaBayis is Tahor. Now the thing is that everybody on Har HaBayis is considered Derech Rechoka, they're considered far away. So therefore we don't take them into account. The only people we take into account are the people in the Azara, and they're all Tameh, so therefore it's considered the majority of Am Yisrael is Tameh, and they can bring the Korban Pesach B'tumah. So we say that's dafka like Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Eliezer that you're considered Derech Rechoka if you're outside of the Azara. Very, very interesting. So we see it's Taka Machlokas about what Rabbi Eliezer says. Yeah, according to one opinion, it means that if you're outside of the Azara, you're considered Derech Rechoka. According to the other opinion, no, it's Taka, sort of, Rabbi Eliezer really just agrees with the concept of Modi'in. Okay? Tani, we learned in the Brayso Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer Derech Rechoka Sheme'ani Mahalech Shnayim or Shlosha Yomim. So if, when it says Derech Rechoka, so I think, what's Derech Rechoka? 2-3 days away. Kshu Omer over Derech Lohaya, Magad Shema'is Kopas Azar V'lachutz Kari Derech. But then when it says that Uva Derech Lohaya, not necessarily Derech Rechoka, even Derech. So we see that it could even just be from outside of the Iskopes Hazar, and that's enough. So that was Daf Tzadi Daled. Yeah, I'd say like 75% of the Daf was really talking about how far the sun walks, that's travels. It's pretty abstract. I feel like, just like we said that the entire world is like the lid of a pot for hell, I feel like whatever the Gemara discussed today regarding the sun and the size of like the firmaments and all sorts of stuff must even probably just like the handle of the lid of the pot for how vast this sugya is. And I know maybe like the speck of dust on the handle of that lid. So sorry if I didn't guide you through it so well, but maybe we have a guide among the ranks of Babylon Talmud. Hakopanim, at the end we had an interesting machlokas about how to understand Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, which is a very interesting opinion, that you're considered far away even if you're simply outside of the threshold of the Azara. Apparently it's a machlokas about what Rabbi Eliezer actually said. There is that opinion, but there's also an opinion that he really just holds like everybody else, that Modi'in is the cutoff. And that's based on the comparison to Ma'aser Sheni, that it says if you're far away by Ma'aser Sheni, and the limud over there would be that just like Ma'aser Sheni, you're outside of where you would do the Ma'aser Sheni in Jerusalem, so you're also, it's where you do the Ma'aser Sheni in the Azara. So, no, that would be the second opinion. According to the first opinion, which is that Rabbi Eliezer agrees that it's Modi'in, so then it would be that it's based on where you eat it. So just like Ma'aser Sheni, if you're outside of Jerusalem where you would eat it, so you're also by Pesach, it's outside of Jerusalem where you would eat it. So, basically if you're far away from Jerusalem, and we're going to say that means Modi'in. Have a great day. Peace out.